Hello, viewers. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. And happy resurrection, that is happy Easter for our Christian brothers and sisters. We are right back here on your program, and that is Yorubaref with Alagba Femi or Dedeyi. Remember that on this program, we're still treating federalism, the journey so far. On the program, we'll looked at and we will continue to look at the efforts that are being made by different organizations or human government towards refederalizing Nigeria, if we can put it like that. We've also looked in the past to efforts that have been made by organization and by government, especially Nigerian government in the past. And then we look at where we're going. For now, Alagbafemi Adedi, you are welcome on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and happy Easter, happy Resurrection Day to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we are kicking off straight on efforts, because we'll take it as an effort that's being made by organizations. This one really has to do with another, or what you can say, new organization. And I'm going to ask questions along that line. If setting up several and many organizations is the way forward for Yoruba in the first instance, and then for others who may be forming an alliance with Yoruba and the other ethnic groups in Nigeria. So, but we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay. Now, the Coalition for De-Amalgamation and Security, that is CODS, had a virtual meeting about 2 weeks ago. And this organization, they are a combination of people that they've claimed to be Yoruba leaders and also people that they've claimed to be Igbo leaders. So it's really a fusion between, either a fusion or an alliance between claimed Yoruba leaders and claimed Igbo leaders. At that meeting, we have few names that have been sent to us. We have Professor Banji Akintoye. We have architect George Akinola and Dr. Kayode Emola as representing the Yorubas. And on the side of the Igbo, we have Mazi Tony Unwisi, who happens to be the Igbo Global Network. We have Emmanuel Kanu. We have Mazi Ositadima Igenu and Chinedu Agbodike, if I get that right. And this group are actually taking this step for the de-amalgamation or the separation of Nigeria along ethnic lines. So I'll take your word first of all. So that's the first question I'm going to ask now. We've seen several and many organizations being set up, practically doing the same thing. And some in the past have kicked off, they've ended, and the organization is closed. Then in another 1 week or 2 weeks, we'll see another organization being raised by virtually the same players. Yeah. Is there what we can call a positive impact of this, or is it just negative?
Yeah, it's negative. With respect to especially the Yoruba leaders that were mentioned, that we all know, or most of Yoruba people know, Professor Akintoye was the chairman of the Yoruba World Congress. George Akinola was the secretary at that time. I'm not sure about Kayode Mola, where he was. And then the organization broke up to Ilana, with Professor Akintoye as the head. And then Ilana broke up to become Yoruba Self-Determination Movement. So in all of this, there is no specific reason. One, to any organization can break up for any reason, whatever the reasons are. But if the same people that broke up in the first organization formed another organization saying the same things, then it means the reason for breakup in the first instance are not genuine. This is not to disrespect any one of them. It's just the reality. Because you can't leave one organization saying you want Yoruba Nation and then it broke up. Then you form another organization saying you want Yoruba Nation with the same people or some of the same. Of course, some people will follow you to your new organization. So in a very large society, even in a small society, many organizations can spring up for so many reasons. But the question here in this case is one, on the purpose for the existence of the organization in the first instance. Then the reason for breaking up, pursuing the same purpose with the same people. So we can talk confidently about the Yoruba Nation because we know each other. We interacted with each other at different levels. So we can be very concrete on the Yoruba aspect. I won't talk too much about the Igbo aspect because, again, not that we don't know anything, we know a few, but because we are not personally involved with them, we will temper what we say about them. But the ones we know, the names that you have mentioned, they are not strange to Yoruba Nation agitation right from the moment they started the Yoruba War Congress. So, and we know how it ended. And then when they now, for whatever reason, maybe they did an internal review and then found out that they needed a new organization, then they formed another organization to pursue the same thing, probably after weeding out those they consider to be undesirable. And we know what happened during the Yoruba Nation movement. The Abiola Onitiri faction and everything and all the rest of it. Now, that is on one side. On the other side, you see, there's a recurring decimal in what I would call Yoruba or the nationalist movement among the Yoruba and the Igbo. Or at one level, you have what I would call the elders. Afenifere will form alliance with Ohanizi and Middle Belt Forum and all that. And they will be doing their agitation. Now, you now have Yoruba Nation forming this similar alliance with Igbo, Biafra or whatever at the same level. So then that brings you the question again, why? Why must there be an Afenifere or Ohanizi Middle Belt alliance on one side and Yoruba Nation of whatever description and Biafra, whatever description, on the other side? Okay, they can say that they want sovereignty, they want to secede, they want their national sovereignty out of Nigeria, while the other side is talking about restructuring or whatever it is. Okay, fine. But at the same time, what are your pathways? What was, and what is the pathway of Afenifere Ohanizi? What is the pathway of these people who have now formed a new alliance to achieve even their breaking up? I read part of their statement, and they are saying that they are going to prepare a constitution and then submit it to what they call, progressive governments or some kind of something like that. Governments to, then, okay, Yoruba Nation under Ilana did the same thing. They prepared whatever documents they wanted to prepare, and then they said they were going to distribute it, give it to diplomats and this and this and that. Then they organized demonstrations in the US in front of the White House, and they were jubilating that, this and that. Then they went. So they have done it before. It apparently didn't lead them anywhere. So why are they doing it again? And that is where we should begin to start questioning their importance and the relevance to even the whole idea of sovereignty itself. I don't know whether I answered.
That's answered. It's answered the question. I would ask again that if the strategy, the current strategy is, if it's different from the one that's been done before, would that have made a difference in your views?
Yeah, it should. Well, it depends on what we mean by difference. Okay, so what they did before, when demonstrating and this and this and that. So if they now say this time around, we are going to do something different, what will that difference be? And from what we have seen from their statement, I don't see any difference, because what they are saying is they are going to do the same things by writing it. The difference is that they want to write a constitution. I don't know how they will come to that conclusion, that their constitution will be accepted by a majority of Yoruba people. But that's a different question. So they will write a constitution. In the past, they didn't write a constitution, but they did. So, but they will go to the same governments and present it to them, just like we asked when they were doing their first time out, that they will ask you for your legitimacy. Whatever you bring to them, they will ask you the source of your legitimacy. If you don't have it, you're just wasting your. So when they now produce a constitution within 90 days, they will now go and present it to responsible government. So I have forgotten how to describe it. So they will ask them, if it's a really responsible government, they will ask them the source of their legitimacy. So these Yoruba Nation people are going to have their constitution. I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, a group also aligned with Afenifere said they are going to write a constitution. So everybody is writing a constitution. So the question is, which one do we take after? Which one do we go with? So it's still a question of putting the cart before the horse. That everybody, even the Yoruba nation that broke up into Ilano, had a constitution.
Yeah.
So that's why I said the thing is on the definition of difference. So when you say you are forming a different organization, you have to define that difference. It's not simply because you are no longer calling yourself A, you are now calling yourself B. There must be something that qualitatively differentiates you from A. And it has to do with your program, your philosophy, your ideas, and your pathway. As long as those still remain the same, it's just a change in nomenclature, I'm afraid to say.
Okay, thank you very much, Alagba Femi or Dedeyi. The group, that is Coalition for De-Amalgamation and Security, they were also calling on international bodies, which, if we look back at few organizations, some of the organizations that have taken the same step in the past, we could remember the organization that said they were going to the United Nations. Even they said that United Nations have accepted them as a member. We also have another section also that actually approached some politicians in the West and in Europe. And I remember vividly that the point you've continually stressed is that before anyone will go out to present anything in representation of his own people, that individual must have the legitimacy, like you call it, There should be something for the person to say, my people have sent me, and they're able to show what process produced them as either a leader or the spokesperson for the ethnic group.
Yes.
So if we compare what this group, the approach they're taking, which is similar to what has happened before, do you see the same result, or could the result be different?
Of course, the result will be the same, in the sense that unless within the next 90 days, they obtain legitimacy from the Yoruba people, the same question will arise. Who sent you? What is the evidence that you represent Yoruba people? Like I said earlier, the group aligned with the Afenifere, I will call them Afenifere of Oba, not the Afenifere Akure, the Afenifere that was aligned with the late Pa Adebanjo. I've forgotten the name of their chairman now. They also said they are preparing a constitution. So at least let's even leaving it at that too. So you have that Afenifere constitution, you now have Yoruba Nation constitution. So the obvious question is, whose constitution is it? Is it an organizational constitution? In other words, are you selling your organization to those governments abroad, or are you selling the Yoruba nation, Yoruba people, the interests of the Yoruba people to them? So if it is the interest of Yoruba people, you have codified into a constitution, then Yoruba people have a right to say whether they agree with it or they don't agree with it, which is essentially a referendum. And the same thing happened when they were, I think they were even then under Yoruba World Congress, when they started this Yoruba Nation thing. And then they started the demonstration in Ibadan. At that time, Akeredolu was the governor of Ondo State. And then he said, where did the Yoruba people reach any consensus as to what you are talking about? And they couldn't provide an answer. So if a local, and Akeredolu told them that he, at that time, as the APC chairman or APC governor of Ondo State, was elected by the people of Ondo State. Now you are now coming to me to say that the Yoruba people want Yoruba Nation. Where did you get your legitimacy from? So the same question will apply today. That's why I said the result will be obvious, because when you do the same thing every time and expecting a different result, they have one word they used to call it, but I won't use that word for them now. But the question is, that's why I said there's no essence in their difference, because you are doing exactly what you did before by the same people that did it, and you are repeating the same thing, and you are expecting a different result. I remember we had a meeting in the heydays of the Yoruba Nation agitation, and we were trying to talk them, into seeing it differently. And a top member of them said that at that time they said they were going to approach the United Nations. And we were telling them what it entails. And then the guy said, no, he's a very good speechwriter, that if the United Nations General Secretary sees his composition, what he writes, that he will just approve it. I mean, that's a high level of political ignorance, which they exhibited at that time. And that is what they are exhibiting today. It is not your fine words. The United Nations itself is a political organization with different interests, as we are even seeing now in the question of Iran, Israel, and all the rest of it. So when you now go and when you now approach such a body, or any government in Europe for that matter, and say that you want your nation to go out, you have to look at the political context of the country you are approaching. When Nadeko was approaching the West during Nadeko time, the whole question of democracy was still on top of the agenda in those countries. There are governments, there are people, most of them, and the rest like that. But it's not the same now. That in most of these countries, you have anti-democratic elements who are elected, but who are trying to disturb the whole march of democracy. And those are the ones who now think we now embrace you. Yeah, you have written a constitution and it's finally written, and therefore we accept it. So there's a whole lot of things that are wrong with the approach. I don't see them making any headway. But the problem is, what is the impact on our people? Because all these things count as part of the political education of the people themselves. So when you now have a people, Yoruba people, for example, that are not even being pointed in the right direction in terms of political praxis, in terms of political philosophy, in terms of political strategy, in terms of even political ideas. What kind of nation are you trying to build? So that that was why the other day, if you remember, during the high days of some people went to court and said they want to stop Tinubu from contesting election and all that. Or so these are the practical implications of what they are doing, which apparently they don't realize, because the less political consciousness among the people. I mean, sentimentally, Yoruba people want freedom. They want federalism. They want self-determination. They want self-government. Why? Because we have gone through it. Yeah, but the question now is, how do we go about it? And no one is trying to provide an answer. And then you just come around and say, Yoruba Nation, we have a constitution, we will go to some countries and they will support us. And then the whole level of political consciousness in the land becomes problematic. And that was what happened during the whole question of local government, this local government, that. The simple question of federalism became something that people are now not even able to address. And then they say governors are corrupt, these are corrupt. And then so it reduces the political understanding among the people. And when that political understanding is absent, what you have is rice and beans for election.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. There's a nation that was cited in the communique that was released, or in the report that was released by the Coalition for the Amalgamation and Security. But before I go into that, I want to quickly ask this question, which I would like you to just answer in just 1 minute. If we see a consistent approach, what you've termed that they are putting the cart before the horse. And we've seen it happening over and over and over, either by those who constituted themselves or put themselves together as leaders of organization or claim to be leaders of a particular ethnic group, and they are going to United Nations or calling on foreign bodies to intervene in Nigeria without actually going through the people themselves to get that legitimacy. Could this be because they want to hold on to a sizable power over their people?
Well, I mean, that's possible. Maybe it could also be because of political ignorance on their part, which they will not want to admit. It's one thing, like you said, they may want to hold on to political power over the people. That's a very, it's possible and it's subjective. We don't know their minds. We don't read their minds. But we can arrive at a conclusion that in a safe way, in a safe manner, so that they won't say that we are trying to tarnish their image. We are trying to do this and do that. We can just excuse them by saying maybe they don't even know or understand what they are doing, and they are refusing to be educated. So, because, I mean, you don't need an outside educator to come and tell you not to repeat the mistake you have done before, if you are capable of doing so. That is, we did this, it didn't work. Why are we doing it again? And you don't have any plausible reason for doing it again. So I will just say, let's give them the benefit of the doubt that it's not because of the power that they want for themselves. I mean, let's keep that off so they don't say we are punishing them. But definitely it shows political ignorance. And it shows that they are not ready to listen to different, because we have tried to interact with them and they simply refuse to respond. We are not saying we know everything. That's not the point. But if we can point out your own limitations, you should be able to point out our own limitations. And that is how dialogue will proceed. But if you can't point out my limitations and I'm pointing out yours, and you are telling me that I am wrong, then there's a comma there. Or is it semicolon? Or is it period?
Thank you for that, sir. I'm interested because the organization cited Yugoslavia in the report that came out. And Yugoslavia was cited as a multi-ethnic nation that was peacefully dissolved. What's your view about that?
That's a false categorization. And that's why I said political ignorance, because these things can even be checked out. Yugoslavia was a multinational state under one communist rule, and after Tito died, there was a fight. Is it Bosnia? Bosnia, Herzegovina,
Yeah.
and the others, and all. So how can, with all that can easily be checked by by just going on the internet to find out what happened, and then you now come out and say there was peaceful dissolution? So either it was a mistake on their part, or a deliberate mischief, or ignorance. Because these things can, I mean, we don't even need to check those who lived through that period. Maybe there was Serbia. Why did this guy, why was he taken to international court and sentenced, Milosevic, or what's his name?
Yeah.
Yes, and all the rest of them. So that's why I said they are even reducing the capacity of our people for their political knowledge. If they had wanted to use any example, USSR would probably be better, because what happened in the USSR, that is the Soviet Union, was almost similar to what they are demanding for. They had a referendum in 1991 in the USSR to federalize the country, although it called itself a Soviet Union, but that's a different matter. But then they had a referendum to really make it a federal union, and then the Soviet army refused and tried to clamp down on them. Then everyone went their different ways. That was how Soviet Union broke up. They didn't really fight. I mean, they were fighting here and there, but there was no. So that would have been a better example, because that will also educate the people on the pathway forward. So now you say you want Yoruba Nation sovereignty, but you are not telling us how you are going to achieve it. So that is why I said there's a problem. There's a problem in their approach, which leads to less political understanding among the people. And this is a very good example of it. Yugoslavia did not break up peacefully. It's not that all of them started fighting each other, but there was a serious war in Bosnia, in Serbia, all of them, even the US. NATO even fought in the war.
The ones involved, yes.
Yes. So,
just for the purpose of our viewers that might be younger, there was war after Yugoslavia was dissolved. There was about a 10-year war from 1991 to 2001 between. I mean, it affected the most part that it affected was Bosnia and Herzegovina. So it was like 10 years war, and I believe that the leaders of the coalition are not suggesting that Nigeria could break up just like that and be engaged in war between ourselves for 10 years. Let's quickly move because of our time. And I think it's just one question now which we can really talk about the insecurity in Nigeria. Would a true and genuine federal structure resolve the current insecurity?
Yes, absolutely. Again, it now depends on what you mean by real and genuine, what we call true federalism. So, yes. Of course it will. Why? Because the basic issue driving insecurity is on land. Indigenous people being driven out of their land, and some people, they say they come from anywhere, that are trying to drive them out of their land, even including those of us in the Southwest. So there's a land, the insecurity is a land question. And when you talk of land question, you are talking about federalism. That is, who owns the land, as somebody sang a long time ago, who owns the land? So the indigenous people and those who want to drive them out. So if we have true federalism, real federalism, the people who own the land, who are indigenous to the land, will organize their own security. And when somebody from wherever, Niger or Libya, wants to drive them out, they will know how to handle it. Now, it is becoming a problem because the ownership and control of that land has been taken away from the indigenous people and vested in the states. That's why the Constitution says that Nigeria shall be a federation of states. Who created the states? It was the military. The people, even though they are demanding for different kinds of states and all the rest now, it's not the people that own the land that created the states. So when you now say they are not the federating units, but it's just like the British colonial rule, when we talk about arbitrary boundaries, that they just sat down at a table and drew a map and say, this is British territory, that is French territory. So the same thing the military did, and just say, okay, these are the states, and these states are going to be the federating units, without even asking the people of those states whether they want to federate with the rest or not. So, as your question said, it is absolute that the only way to resolve the insecurity is by true federalism. And by true federalism, we mean a federation of people who own their land. So you can't take away their ownership of the land. I'm not talking about C of O, that whether the governor can issue C of O and all that. That's not what it is. I'm talking about, like when you say we are Yoruba, you don't need a C of O to show that you are a Yoruba, whether you are in Ibadan or Ayo. Is it Oyo Alaafin abi Oyo, or whichever Oyo it is. So it is there. That is the issue. So when people are recognized as the people that they are, insecurity will go. I'm not saying there will be no criminals and so forth, but you know how to resolve your issue. So if you have the power to protect your land, nobody will come and drive you away, and then the government will now go and put you in an IDP camp, leaving your land desolate. And that is the essence of the insecurity we are having. When these people strike, they drive people away from their land. The government takes those people, put them in IDP camps, and be catering for them while the terrorists are running all over the place. So if you reverse that, then it means the people control their land and they will control their security. And now you can now say the federation is a federation of the various peoples that are in Nigeria. And that was how it was to a certain extent by independence before the military came in and started all the crap that we are in now. So that is why we are talking about a Yoruba referendum, to let us know how we want to govern ourselves. And we have the right, the legitimate right to do so, to govern, and we expect every other nationality to do the same.
Right. Thank you, Alagbafemi or Dedeyi. Our heart goes to the victims of the insecurity and the massacre in Jos.
Yes.
And in Benue, there are reports that some areas were attacked today.
Yeah.
And what we kept on saying, and which we are seeking for the support of the people, is that there has to be a referendum in Nigeria. We're not talking about a national referendum. This has to be a referendum by the nationalities, that is the people. In the 1999 Constitution, although it starts with "we the people," and obviously we've all agreed to an extent that the people were not involved when the Constitution was written. But also, as Alagbafemi Odedeji has mentioned, that Nigeria is a federation of states and not the people. And that is the foundation of some of the issues that are going on now. Most of the solutions that are being profiled are superficial. We need to get right down to the foundation to get this sorted. For those of you that are in Southwest, that is the Yoruba Southwest, you've heard Alagbafemi Odedeji mention about the bill for Yoruba referendum. The bill is sitting at your houses of assembly in your state, the 6 states of the Yoruba states, which we know as Southwest. They are sitting on the table of your governors. Your speakers of the houses of assembly, they've got it in their hands. What you could do for yourself and do for your children, and of course, what you could do for those that have become victims of insecurity in Nigeria, is to put your support for the Yoruba referendum. We believe strongly that if the Yoruba could get it, it will also affect the rest of the country. And that brings us to the end of the program for today. Remember, we are back here next Sunday, same time and same station.